Welcome to the Teamwork Advantage podcast with Greg Gregory. Join us as Greg interviews powerful thought leaders and successful team and leadership experts from across the country on teamwork, leadership, and organizational culture. Now let's check in.
Welcome back to the Teamwork Advantage. Hi, folks. My name is Greg Gregory, CSP and founder of the Teamwork Advantage, a podcast that we really do dedicate ourselves to teamwork, leadership, and culture. We strive to find and bring you guests each week that can help you build your teams, whether it is personal teams, volunteer groups and organizations. All of those things have a commonality in there of teamwork, leadership, and culture. And our goal today is the same. We're speaking with the CEO of Biggby Coffee, and that's going to be a lot of interesting. Now, I got to admit, when I first saw this come across my desk, I didn't know Biggby Coffee, but they're a regional and a very large regional coffee house that's doing some incredible things. And that's what's fascinating, is watch how they grew, how they faltered possibly a little bit, and how they're growing again right now. I'm in Maryland, so here we don't have Biggby Coffee yet. So we'll have to see if we can work on that. But a little bit about Mike McFall. He is the CEO of Biggby Coffee. He's a thought leader and conscious business owner and promoter of, listen to this, love in the workplace. And that's powerful, because that's what we got to start to work towards in today's crazy society. He's the author of a book called Grow, Take Your Business from Chaos to Calm. He also does public speaking, faculty member at the University of Michigan. So a lot of great criteria coming to us today to talk about Biggby and talk about teamwork, leadership, and culture. Mike, welcome to the Teamwork Advantage.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, we're excited about this. And like I said, I had never heard of Biggby Coffee, so I had to start researching it and going online and finding out about you guys. And you've been around for, what, almost 20 years now, right?
We're in our 28th year.
28?
We're in our 20th year. Yeah, we were founded in March of 1995.
Okay. I can't do my math anymore. Okay, got that. So you started in March of 95, but let's go back before that. I mean, you didn't wake up one day as an 8-year-old and said, I'm going to start a coffee business. What got you to where you are?
Well, I had what I would say is a pretty standard and maybe in many versions a utopic upbringing here. I live in Ann Arbor now. I grew up about a half hour north of here. My parents, did an amazing job of raising us in a way that life was meant to be an adventure. And they helped us live that. And so, I was an athlete growing up, good enough to know I wasn't very good, I think, is how I would say that, but there's a couple of things that I did early on in life. When I was 15 years old, I boarded a square rig tall ship in Nova Scotia as my junior year in high school, and I sailed halfway around the world to Singapore. And we stopped at 13 countries, and I got back from that. I ended up at a small liberal arts private college here in Michigan called Kalamazoo College, and then when I was there, I opted to spend my junior year of my collegiate years in Sierra Leone in West Africa. At the time, it was considered to be the poorest and least developed country in the world, and it was just about to spiral into about a 12-year civil war. I was the last student group to go there, and so the reason I bring those things up is when I was growing up, my parents were advocates of going ahead and pushing the envelope and doing things that were a little bit unusual, and the expectation of life being an adventure. I stumbled into entrepreneurship. Before ending up in the coffee business, I was headed more towards academia and studying and researching and writing and so on. But what happened to me was I was on a very specific research project at Michigan State University, and I took a job at this coffee shop in East Lansing and fell in love with the coffee business. And so that one store was our very first store. I started in our very first store as a barista. I would work the morning shift, so I would work from 6 a.m. till 2 p.m. And then I would walk over to the university and I would work 4 hours over at the university in my office there doing research. The what transition for me was that my business partner today, Bob Fish, the co-founder, co-CEO of the company with me, he approached me about becoming a manager in the business, and I wasn't really thinking about being in the coffee business full time. But in March of 1996, we ended up going for a long walk one afternoon. We sat down first interview style for me to become a manager of his business, and we ended up going for a long walk instead of sitting across the table from each other. And we shook hands at the end of that walk, and we agreed to become partners and to form a new company that would be the company that we would use to grow the brand Biggby Coffee. And that's our company today. So we shook hands that many years ago, and here we are today, and we're still growing the business. And honestly, I feel like, and I know he agrees with me, that we're just getting started. And that's kind of a cool thing to say after 28 years.
Well, yeah, and it really is, because, when I've gone through, you guys had some amazing success. I mean, MSNBC recognized you at points as far as how you were growing, but you had a little bit of a setback in there. You want to talk to us a little bit about that setback?
Yeah, it's a really pivotal moment in our history. It would have been,
because it makes you who you are today.
Yeah, absolutely, right. We came out of the Great Recession, and we were booming, and we were growing like crazy. We had our biggest years of growth in 2012, 2013, 2014. And what my partner and I started to notice was that we were becoming less and less inspired to be working in the business and growing the business. The reason, looking back on it now in hindsight, the reason is that, we didn't understand what the heck it was all for. And I think we started to figure out that adding one more increment of value to our balance sheet, or, another comma to our income, like that wasn't inspiring us. We were making good livings. I would say at that point, we probably weren't too worried about retirement or, putting our kids through college or that kind of stuff. And so it just became like, well, what's it all for? And we kept exploring all these different kinds of ideas, like doing an acquisition, or maybe starting a new brand, or, all these business concepts. But it kept coming back to, well, why? Why? And so it really was this moment where we were losing our grip on what the heck we were doing it for, and we didn't really understand it. At the beginning, it's just survival and grow it, so you could have a job, or so you could make money for your family, and so on.
Right.
We were beyond all of that, and so we had a 2 to 3 year conversation about this, about what was going on for us, and trying to explore different. Well, long story short, I happened to be up in a very remote island off of the northwest corner of Michigan, and I was there on a camping trip with my son and my brother. And we went for a walk. There's no retail on this island. There's only campsites, and it's quite remote. And we ended up going for a walk one day, and we were on the farthest, most remote part of the island. And I looked over, and there was a couple hovering over like a camp stove on the beach. And I didn't obviously engage them. They were doing their own thing, but I had this most amazing, like, peaceful feeling set in for me at that moment. Later that evening, where we were camping, you had a communal campfire. That couple walked up and sat down with us for dinner. The husband started talking to my brother about his work in conscious capitalism, and that he was a consultant for companies in exploring conscious business, conscious capitalism. And so I sat and listened to him. I handed him my card, and he we made contact a week later. We ended up engaging him in a 3-year consulting contract to work with us to find our purpose and our vision. And Greg, I know that sounds crazy. It took us 3 full years.
I'm glad you said that, because so many people think they can do that in a weekend, and they get into it and they come up with words, but they're not words they can live by forever.
Yeah, words that can power your entire being.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely. And then
yeah,
sometimes, when you have a purpose, sometimes that purpose may get shifted a little bit. And when you've got the right purpose, it may shift, but then you understand the shift that's happening and you can shift with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was incredibly powerful. And I have so many stories about the impact that work had. I mean, I've now written 2 books since that moment. I published my first book in 2018. I published my last one came out June 6th of this year, and all of that work is in relation to the purpose. And I'm doing all of that while at the same time managing the business and growing our company.
And that's so key, because the setback that you had with yourselves and you and Bob was impacting the organization and was having a detrimental effect on the culture at that time. Am I right?
Well, when we were in it, meaning pre that self-reflective moment, when we
Right.
were really just growing and trying to build something that was sustainable and so on, we were so wrapped up in that we never really noticed, I think, that our culture was unhealthy.
Right.
And when we were able to come out of that to a degree and really begin to think about what it was all about and what it was all for, that's when we started to reflect on and make real powerful changes in the company. And I'll tell you, there was one moment too, another really important moment. I think this is pertinent to your podcast for sure. And that was up until that moment we were reflecting. I'd always built a huge wall up in between me and anybody who worked in the organization personally. And I lived my personal life on one side of the wall, and I had my business persona on the other side of the wall. I was in a meeting, and I'll never forget this. I was in a meeting with people that had worked with us for, at that point, 10, 12, 15 years. It was our senior leadership team. And it dawned on me that the people in that room were people that were my primary relationships in the world and were going to be my primary relationships in the world in the future. And when I had that epiphany, a whole bunch changed for me. And I'd always been protective because I always felt like that I might have to make a decision at some point down the road that would put those people in peril. Sell or bring in private equity or whatever it might be. And so I always was very, very guarded.
Right.
And that epiphany also was wrapped up in the fact that that didn't have to be my outcome, that I controlled my outcome. I didn't have to do that. And when I had that epiphany, that changed a lot for me personally.
Okay. All right. You mentioned something when you were on that camping trip when this consultant started speaking with your brother, and you mentioned the word conscious capitalism. I think we all know what capitalism is.
Yeah.
What is conscious capitalism? Let's get the definition of that so we can figure that out, because therein is the part of the foundation for Biggby Coffee today.
It is. We are referring to it as stakeholder capitalism because, I mean, it's the same model. Conscious capitalism, stakeholder it's the same model. What it is at its core is that instead of having, Milton Friedman came out in 1971 and wrote an essay in the New York Times advocating for that the only thing that managers of businesses had to do was to return on shareholder value. Conscious capitalism brought a different perspective, and conscious capitalism brings the perspective of stakeholders, and that there are 6 equal stakeholders inside of a company. And as the manager of the business, you're responsible equally to all 6.
Okay.
And so the 6 are the community in which you do business, the environment, so our natural resources, the environment, your vendors that you do business with, your customers, your employees, and then also the shareholder. So when you're making decisions, you have to take into account all 6 stakeholders and make sure that you aren't sacrificing one stakeholder over another when you're making decisions and managing and running the business. And it's just, it makes for a more powerful, more well-rounded organization that isn't solely focused simply on the shareholder.
When you're thinking about it like that, my mind goes back to 1985 in Johnson & Johnson, when the Tylenol debacle happened in Chicago. They originally wanted to pull it off the shelves just in Chicago, but the board decided no, because they weren't paying attention to just their shareholders. They were taking it conscientiously about everybody else. They took it off the stage completely globally, and then rebuilt and came back. Is that kind of the direction we're looking at there?
That would be a great example. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be a great example. And, one of the things that needs to be emphasized when you're considering the stakeholder capitalism model is that this does not mean the shareholder sacrifices.
Absolutely.
And by being a stakeholder-driven organization, in my opinion, long term, the shareholder will also benefit more powerfully than just purely the traditional model.
So let's talk about it from your level at the C-suite, even all the way down through leadership levels into your stores. What does it take from a leadership's perspective or standpoint to build a culture that really builds around this conscious capitalism or stakeholder capitalism? And then how have you guys built into that at Biggby?
Well, I think that, one, it zooms out the lens of the C-level manager and begins to incorporate more into decision making. And so when we're addressing strategic policy, or when we're thinking about different initiatives that we want to be involved in, we are considering impact on the employee, impact on the environment, impact on the community in which we do business. And so, it's something that I think it's a healthier perspective and a healthier approach for everyone involved. Some of the stuff that we do very specifically, we run a fully transparent business. And so, we're a privately held company. We have 2 shareholders, myself and my partner, and we run a fully transparent company. Okay. So the financials are, everybody sees the full detailed financials. Everybody knows down to the penny how much money my partner and I make, and it's but we've always believed in full transparency and having full respect for the employee, that the employee is an adult, that they can comprehend, the complexity of everything we have going on. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that transparency invites people into the complexity of the environment and allows them to understand better what the heck is going on and what we're trying to do.
Right. And I think that's powerful when they really feel like they're part of the decision process in a lot of cases. It's what they're doing. How do you, and I'm not sure how to ask the question, but when you're looking for managers and leaders at the frontline level, at the store levels, that type of thing, even your franchise owners, how do you find them? How do you get people to buy into the whole idea of conscious capitalism versus just greed and capitalism?
So it's an interesting question, this question about finding people. And I talk all the time about how, in my opinion, as leaders, we shouldn't be on a quest to find good people. We should be on a quest to build environments that people want to be a part of. And I think you do that primarily through your purpose and what you are up to, what you stand for in the world. We've had two really important strategic hires in the last couple of years. One was a chief operating officer that joined us. He's been with us this July will be 2 years. And then we hired a CFO just recently. And I had conversations last week with both of them, and each one of them said the reason they're with us is because they aligned well with our purpose, and they thought it was something that they wanted to do in the swan song of their careers. They're both professionals. They've been at it a long time, and so there's a concept by Jim Collins. It's about getting the right people on the bus. And
chapter three.
Is that
three
what
of the book? It's first. Wow, forget the chapter name now, but it's chapter 3 of the book, Good to Great.
Good to Great. Yeah, but there's a gentleman by the name of McNamara that wrote a very similar book that studied companies that were not as mature as the companies that Jim Collins studied. And his concept that I agree with even more than Jim Collins' concept is, well, how about we first start by building a bus that people want to be a part of, build a bus that people want to ride on. And
Right.
So to me, that's what we as leaders need to be doing. And when you do that, you'll find the need, the need to go out and find people will go down, because more people will want to be a part of your organization.
Absolutely. It's interesting you're saying that, because of your CFO and the people that you're bringing in are more seasoned, and they're having that mindset. That mindset is very heavily involved in today's youth coming out of college. They're looking to find something that means to them to line up with their values, if they can find the matching company, and that's more than money to them.
Yeah, well, I read something the other day that 76% of employees would leave their job today if they could find a similar job that had more meaning.
Wow.
76%.
Now, it's interesting because I've asked the question over the years, how many would leave their job if they're a previous boss of theirs that they really love to work for would offer them a job? And
absolutely.
Yeah, 90% of the people there. Yeah.
Got to be. Yeah. What do they, people don't work at companies, they work for their manager.
Yeah. They work in the environment. And so, whether the environment is the people they're working with, or it's the belief of the organization, it's all about that.
Yeah. 100%.
And so that's a huge factor in your stakeholder of the employee. It's getting employees who really want to be there.
Yeah.
As opposed to taking a job, which just means jump over backwards.
Yeah. And I in my book, one of the major premises of the book is that our job as leaders is to create an environment for people to thrive within, and to create team environments that people thrive within. And to me, the key to that is building nurturing, supportive, loving environments that when people show up to work, they feel like they can show up as their authentic self. They're safe. They bring their opinions, their ideas to the table. And those are the environments that I think are highly effective and powerful. And those are the environments that we all need to learn how to create. And I think great leaders do.
And I think you're absolutely right. And that's bringing people in at the third level in Maslow's hierarchy when you stop to look at that. It's giving that sense of belonging when they first walk in the door, and they don't have to worry about building levels 1 and 2.
Right.
So in your book, Grow, you're talking about now taking the next step from just conscious capitalism or stakeholder capitalism. You're talking about taking it up to the next step and getting the business to run sustainably. So getting the people is one thing. Keeping it sustainable, there's the old expression, getting to the top is easy, staying to the top is difficult.
Right.
So how do you keep it sustainable?
Well, the book picks up from book number 1 goes from the day you commit to a new concept to your first days of positive cash flow.
Okay.
That book is called Grind. The second book, Grow, picks up in that bootstrapping entrepreneurial moment when it appears you have a legitimate, successful idea and business on your hands. And then it goes on this very long arc of the first thing you have to do is transition out of the bootstrapping phase into being an effective leader of your organization and of your team. And that's a transition that's very difficult for many entrepreneurs to make, because so much of what made us successful as entrepreneurs gets in our way in terms of leadership. And my partner and I lived that. That was I don't even know, 5 to 7 to maybe even a 10-year transition for us, right? To go from that maniacal, obsessive entrepreneur who dives into every detail and thinks, we think we have the answer for everything, to transitioning into becoming an effective leader of a team where you're facilitating an environment for other people to thrive. Right. So that's a huge transition. But then I go even further and I say, we also need to transition as entrepreneurs from leader to what I call irrelevance. And irrelevance means that you are no longer necessary in the organization for the organization to continue to thrive. And so that, again, is an incredibly arduous transition, because you go from being, quote, top of the mountain, the key leader, you're getting all the accolades for everything that's going on. But then I want you to transition from that into irrelevance, where your phone rings twice a week, where you're not engaged in meetings, where the team itself, and you have a new leader in place, and the team itself is driving the business, and the business will continue to thrive even if you're run over by a bus tomorrow.
Yeah. And some organizations that come to mind like that have done that very well, of course, are Apple, doing that transition, and Marriott Corporation, how they've taken it from their early days of what they did all the way.
It's and to me, it gives the entrepreneur ultimate flexibility. Mm-hmm. You can hold it, you can continue to own it, you can bring in strategic partners, you could sell it, you can, it gives you infinite possibilities. Mm-hmm. And you're still in the driver's seat with those ultimate decisions, which I think is what a lot of people aspire to, but very few can get there.
Yeah, you're saying irrelevance. Irrelevance does not mean insignificance.
Exactly. So it doesn't mean insignificance. And like we still get to work on things that we love. We still get to be involved in the things that our team wants us to be involved in. We can get involved in the stuff that is exciting, and we still get dragged back into conversations that are more in the minutia from time to time. But that's because our team invites us back into those conversations. So that's a different mentality.
So let's talk here about, you've got an organization, a small to medium-sized organization, maybe 400 or 500 employees. And how are you helping other managers understand that part of the transition for themselves? Because you've got to in order to keep the puzzle moving and growing, each person has to continue to do that. What do you do to help them understand how to be a better leader themselves and to let go a little bit of their purse strings, if you will? Especially now, you're also talking about a lot of franchise holders which feel like they own that particular place.
Yeah, well, they do. Yeah. They do. It's theirs,
Yeah, it's theirs.
It's for us right now. A big part of it is to lead by example. But then, we do run formal training around leadership and around these concepts. My book series is meant to be a way to affect and have influence on our internal teams as well. And so, it is each one of us, though, as leaders, one of the primary things we need to be doing always is building more leaders and continuing to build strong people within our organizations that can facilitate the team dynamic. Just because somebody is an amazing leader in their discipline doesn't necessarily mean they're a good prospect for an overall leader, if that makes sense. And so constantly looking for people within the organization who want it that's a big part of this, is they want to do it, and that they have the ability and the understanding. One of the things that I'm really proud of in both of my books is a concept called, well, we all know the concept of due diligence, but the concept in my books that I love is that we as leaders need to continuously be doing due diligence on ourselves.
Wow.
Knowing.
I want to visit that again. Leaders need to do due diligence continually on ourselves, not necessarily an external, but an internal force.
Correct.
Okay.
Understanding how we impact the organization. And that is all around self-awareness. And so this idea of continuously diving into and analyzing and working on and getting feedback around our impact as a leader is absolutely critical to the success of the team, and then therefore the success of the organization. And it's something that I don't think we've talked enough about in leadership, is that we need, well, I have this this concept that your best mentor, Greg, your best mentor is your team. We all think of mentorship as outside forces, these people that have been there before, been through it, and can shed some kind of brilliant light on us and our work to help us. The best place to get the feedback you need as a leader is from the people you are leading.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm amazed when I do a lot of my training sessions and I talk about a 360 feedback at the number of people who don't understand the power in that.
Oh, yeah, it's incredible.
Dr. Stephen Covey's concept of doing a 360, 40 years ago, was just incredible.
Yeah.
Getting that feedback, it helps us really start to grow. When you've got a manager or a leader in there, you've got somebody who wants to do it, but don't really have the ability. But then you may have somebody who has the ability who may not want it. You've got all those little parities that start to come together. Again, you create the right position. How do you find the person? How do you work with the person? How do you help them grow?
Well, everyone's different. And that, again, is a nuance in leadership, is that your job as the leader is to be intimately engaged in each individual that you're leading, to understand their nuances, what they need, what they aspire to. And that is something that I think leaders don't spend enough time focusing on. And we oftentimes expect people to adjust to us as leaders and to our style and to what we expect and want, right, as opposed to understanding the individual and then making sure that we are meeting that individual and providing that individual with that individual needs. I've got a great example. I had a brilliant guy who ran my IT department. He's gone on. He left us years ago. He's gone on to do just incredible things in the world. And I used to get frustrated because we had an 8 a.m. management meeting, whatever it was, every Thursday morning. And he always showed up like a hot mess into that meeting. Hadn't slept, his hair was all messed up. He hardly said 3 words in the meeting, and I used to get super frustrated with that. And then he and I had a heart-to-heart one time. He said, Mike, listen, I work best from midnight till 3 or 4 in the morning. That is when I am hyper productive and I can get more done in 3 hours than I could in a week of working from noon till 4 p.m. And, when I realized that I was trying to fit this guy into my structure that was important to me. When I realized that and transitioned that, all of a sudden the relationship started to work better. I understood him better. I mean, it's one really sort of particular example, but I think it's a good example. That's
a phenomenal example.
Yeah. And I just stopped. I stopped forcing him to come to 8 a.m. management meetings. I just, and it was, and it worked infinitely better after that.
And it's so important to recognize that, because there are so many folks who think their way is the only way to do something.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
My father, I've lost him a number of years ago, but behavior style wise, he was one, he thought everybody should be like him and didn't understand other people. But some people also think the same about medications. Well, that worked for them. Why isn't it working for me? Everybody is different.
Right.
And we've got to recognize that. And that's the power of what we talk about here on the Teamwork Advantage, is getting people to recognize how different people are. Even though they may both be extroverts, they're still going to have different nuances.
Yes. Yes.
And then,
yeah.
So let me ask you this. As you start to go down the road, you've been very successful. Biggby is growing. What challenges lie ahead?
The challenges that I think we face are whether we can transition our organization fully into an organization that is aligned around our purpose. And that's a really significant challenge. And the fact that we're a franchise company, we have independent owners. They may or they may not be interested in what the heck we're up to. I think that's a really significant challenge for us. It's on the forefront of everything we're trying to do. We have our vision is to improve workplace culture in the United States. And, that is something that we are, that's our reason for being. And so if we can't facilitate that and make a very significant dent in improving workplace culture in the United States, then, what we're up to here will be a failure. So, I think that one of our challenges is that we don't own all of our stores. The people that work in the stores are not they're not our employees. And so, for us to have impact on, let's say compensation, we don't weigh in on compensation as an example. And so, there's just a lot to getting our manifesting our vision in terms of the type of company we are, which is a franchise company. And the beauty of a franchise company is you have all these really powerful, quite successful, experienced people coming in and making an investment in your brand and building a business within your brand. That's the power of a franchise. At the same time, these are extraordinarily independent people that don't necessarily, and they shouldn't necessarily buy into what the heck we're doing. It's not, and so, it is, I would say it's a large challenge for us. Growth right now is really quite incredible. We were growing I just saw May grew 27% year over May last year. And like that's a huge number on the numbers that we're talking about. And so growth is happening. The business is thriving. We have all kinds of issues, of course, and challenges. But I would say that that's probably, from my perspective, my biggest challenge. And, it's so important to me because it's why, I'm writing books on it, and I'm spending half my life with great people like you talking about this stuff. And that's the challenge.
Let's get ready to wrap up, but I want to chat a little bit about culture, because you brought it up here and I think it's so powerful. How do you keep the culture? You've got it in your office. Let's even just talk about within the stores that are corporate owned. How do you keep that culture so powerful, so focused? Because I know a lot of organizations, even on small teams, they struggle keeping the culture together. How do you guys do it?
Well, you talk about it constantly.
Okay.
You bring it forward at every opportunity. You use your purpose and your vision as the bedrock for the guideposts that keep you on track, and so it is something that you like. We had a management meeting where we brought all of our managers together. We do it once a month, and our last one, we got to the end of it, And what we do is my partner and I sit through the whole meeting. The C-suite within our company breaks off afterward, and then convenes. And then my partner and I come on and we talk about the meeting for the first 5 or 10 minutes. And my feedback at that moment was, we just had a 2-hour long meeting with every manager in the business present, and I didn't hear our purpose or vision mentioned at all.
Wow.
And that was something that was that I brought as an alarm bell to the group. It's like, this needs to be part of just about everything that we're doing, and be the reason for why we're here. And that the economic engine of the business that is managing a franchise for coffee shops, that economic engine is to fuel and to propel our purpose and our vision. And so if all we're focusing on is the economic engine itself, we're missing the whole point. And the whole point is our culture. The culture is the whole point, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, for somebody who believes in culture completely, that absolutely makes sense. Keeping it at the forefront, it's the reticulating activator, if you will, bringing it to the forefront of the mind. So the decisions are focused around that, so that people can work together, so they're all part of that. We got a gentleman on the podcast back in the early days, and that's exactly what he does. Is they bring it up. They do certain culture days, and they're constantly bringing the culture back.
Yeah.
And he's trying to do that, and that's so powerful. He's actually terminated somebody because they started not living the culture.
Sure.
And
that's
but that starts to go.
And that's the thing that senior leadership, my partner and I, that's what we're here to do. Yeah. I don't run meetings. I don't worry about, necessarily the financials as much anymore and so on. What my job as a senior leader, the co-CEO of the company, is to facilitate, nurture, and continue to develop the culture. That is my role.
And at this level, you've got the incredible vision that you then have to disseminate down through the ranks so that everybody else can see that vision, which ties the culture together. Am I on the right page?
Yeah, that's everything. I mean, it's everything, and that's, to me, it's, top 3 or 4 things that need to be happening within the organization all the time, every day.
As we wrap up here, what are the 2 or 3 things you might tell a manager of a division within a company to do to help create their culture better? Is there something they could do away from the C-suite?
Yeah.
What can we tell other managers? What could you tell your franchise owners? What could you work with that side on as far as to develop a better culture, stronger?
Well, I think first and foremost, we haven't talked much about values and core values, but you got to have the rules to live by within the team.
Yeah.
And so you have to establish those. They have to be real, and you have to use them constantly when you're involved in a team and critiquing members of a team and working with members of a team. So establishment of core values and making sure that they're living and breathing within your team minute in, minute out, every single day is critical. The other thing that I would tell leaders is to quiet your voice.
Ooh.
Don't be the most powerful voice in the room. Speak last, if at all. Facilitate others bringing their voice. When you don't hear from people within a meeting, circle back with them after the meeting and check in with them and understand maybe why they weren't talking, and get their opinions. Ask them specifically about content from the meeting and ask for their opinion on that. And so quiet your voice, but then facilitate the engagement of others would be point 2. And then 3, you have to build an environment where people feel safe. And then the primary way to make people feel safe is to live within integrity yourself as a leader, and then demand that integrity of others. And so that goes full circle to the core values,
Yeah.
right? The core values should give you rules and rules of engagement and so on. So you as the leader have to live with an integrity on those, but then you have to expect others to live with an integrity. And then that's how you end up with people trusting in and feeling safe within your team. And to me, I would say those are the three primary things that we need to be doing as leaders.
And I love it because you brought back in, you're right, we didn't discuss core values, but core values drive the culture. Culture is derived from the core values, and they go hand in hand. It's the two legs of a human. One goes, well, the other one goes right with it.
Yeah. I mean, the core values are something that we need to be constantly engaged in. And it's just, I look at core values. If I'm an outsider stepping into a team, those core values are the rules and with which I have to live within that team. And I understand that. And so that's the expectation. And they're just so critical to the health and foundation of a team.
Yeah, it goes back. It's not about the skills somebody has. It's about their values that they have to bring to the team, because you can always teach the skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Mike, this is a great way to wrap it up. I want to learn more about Biggby. Maybe you'll bring a coffee shop down here, and I might actually go in and get a cup of tea since I don't drink coffee.
You don't have to say that out loud, do you? You don't have to say that.
It's interesting. I love going into coffee shops. My late wife and I would go, and she would get a coffee, and I would just sit there and it actually would relax me. It would bring me to a center point so I could breathe and just enjoy the smells.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. They really are. They're points of community, and that's what I love about them.
Absolutely. I will meet people in a coffee shop a lot of times and do work there because, again, it's a great place to bring a community, and community then, of course, has the word unity, which ties us together.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your time today. Hopefully we can get you back on in a little while, and you've got more Biggby shops and growing and growing and growing, keeping the culture going.
Thanks, Greg. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this.
I appreciate it. And folks, just remember, teamwork really does make the dream work. We get the culture, we start to pull it all together. Teamwork, leadership, and culture is what the Teamwork Advantage is all about. And once a week with the Teamwork Advantage, you get ideas that you can implement immediately. Mike has given us several of those here today that you can take to every level within your organization. And remember, as I always say, having a good day is just being average. Don't be an average person. Go out and make today and every day an excellent, an exceptional day. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Teamwork Advantage with Greg Gregory. Be sure to like, subscribe, and activate the bell icon to be notified of future episodes. To learn more about how Greg can help your organization develop a powerful winning culture, visit teamsrock.com. That's teamsrock.com.